All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome back to Professor Drew's lab. It is once again Monday, and y'all have some questions. A lot of the ones today, I think I spooked you guys last time talking about like the future and the next games and what happens after the TOTS game. So we got a lot of clarifiers on those topics, and then we have a little bit more DM advice, and then we have one spoilery question, which I'll save for the end. So if you guys aren't all caught up, but you still want to hear kind of what's going on, I'll just I'll put that little spoiler tag right before the last question for you. But let's jump right into it. We have Izuku Midoriya would like to know, after the TOTS game is over, will you guys play another big campaign? I know you said you will get into the war in a mini campaign style, but like a full-on big campaign like the current one. And if you do you plan on it being another Pokemon game, or would it be a classic D&D game? So I would love to do another full-on Game 2 thing. And the way I said that makes it sound like we have no plans to do that. We do. We've talked a lot about what a Game 2 would be, what it would look like. Spoiler alert for those of you that do watch these. Nothing major. I don't want to spook you, but the stat blocks that we've been making at the end of these are for that Game 2, down the line, wherever and whatever it may look like, which will answer the other part of your question. Would it be a Pokemon theme or more classic D&D? It's going to be a little bit of both. I definitely want to get away from just Pokemon. I have a lot more fun when I can give the players stuff they can do. So that's definitely something that we've talked about. But we've mentioned before a whole homebrew system that Devin and I have worked on for a long time now. And at this point, we've looped in the rest of the players at the table just to get their input. And so, yeah, we have plans for a Game 2. I have no idea when. I don't know. So that I can't tell you when that's happening. It'll be vaguely after War of the Architects is done. We have a lot of stuff that we would like to do for Game 2, and we have a lot of stuff we would have to get done to get that ready. So it'll definitely be a good long while. But yeah, I definitely don't think Boarding Party is just gonna do a one and done type deal after the TOTS game. I definitely would love to see us doing another one. But we've sort of anchored ourselves in the Pokemon scene, and we've done a lot of work in that regard, so it seems kind of silly to move away from it at this point. Whether or not we would do like a third one, which again, that would, I don't even want to fathom how long that would be. I don't know if it would be Pokemon, but at least one more time we'll go back to that well. Okay, but let's jump on down. Similar question from Iron Knuckles 24. I know you guys have a good few things planned out, but would you guys ever do another Pokemon campaign of going through the world with a different story but holding similar to the world, or even in a different region in the same world as the Laris region where they go through the gyms? So if and when a Game 2 happens, and I'm excluding the War of the Architects for this, because that one is pretty much already set up and ready to go. We just kind of missed the boat on the timing window to get that filmed before the hiatus ended. I would absolutely prefer a new setting and a new world and new parameters of how things work. I'm a big fan of making and designing a new world and new operating systems and new ways to do things, so I don't really like to reuse settings. I do handpick things from past games and stick them in every campaign. So there will obviously, I will put references to the Laris region, but I definitely don't want to do another thing there, because once we get War of the Architects done, I'll have 3 full campaigns that have taken place in the same region, and at a certain point it's like you've kind of explored it in all aspects of time. So I definitely would want to see a new place, new stuff, and kind of get that going. And anybody that's watched the War of the Architects world building stream, you'll know that that one barely takes place in the Laris region. It is much more focused on the north. So hopefully that'll be a nice little change of pace. But I've talked a lot about how the gyms played out, and I have a lot of regrets in how I ran some of them. I make a lot of mistakes because I'm running the same encounter 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and you get tired and you get a little frazzled. So I don't think we'll do a game where they just go through the gyms, so I apologize for that if that's the thing that you guys are really enjoying. I know some of the audience really just is like diehard fans of the gym, and the players and I find them really fun the first time. But if they lose and they have to do it again, and we have to like set up another week of scheduling for it, it gets really hard to stay invested and excited after your first gym challenge, especially if you make it most of the way and then fail, or things just don't go your way, the dice just aren't in your favor. So yeah, I have plans of how I would replace them. Definitely more in the vein of skill challenges, and I would not have those challenges have been individual. I would have let the party go through it all together and let it be a team building exercise. I feel like that would have been much more fun. So that's how I would do the gyms if I did them again. But I definitely think for game 2 we're gonna move away from those. But rest assured and not to worry, the TOTS game is still going strong, guys. It's not ending anytime soon, so there's still plenty of time if the gang wants to tackle the rest of the gym. Jumping on down, Trevor Tube was wondering if we have ever thought about doing more one-shots set in the TOTS campaign world, referring to the detective one-shot, where they do a bunch of stuff related to some things. Go check it out. Go watch the Pokemon Cops one-shot. It's run by Joel, aka Milo. It's phenomenal. He did a great job. I'm super proud of him, so definitely go check that out. Absolutely. We have talked about it. We have thought about it. The limiting factor, as always, is time. Those are one-shots that I prefer to pass the reins off to someone like Joel to flex their DM skills and kind of show off what they can do, because the players have some phenomenal ideas, and it's really cool to see them behind the screen. But when they take place in the sort of same region, I like to really step back and let them do whatever they want to do. That way they don't feel constrained by how I would do something or a ruling that I would make. So, have we thought about it? Absolutely. Yes, we have. As for will we see something like that soon? I have no idea. Time is very, very, very difficult to manage, because usually if everybody is available to do something like that, we just film another session of the TOTS. And if somebody's not available and we try to film something like that, it's still pretty difficult to get everybody back together. So, yeah, I guess the answer to that is never say never, but time. All right. Last but not least on the world building / DM advice questions. This is a little bit of overflow from the last one, but I really wanted to tackle this, so I threw you in here. This is from James Deus. How do you handle content in such a sprawling world where the players could head in countless directions? Do you have tons of prepped content for any possible choice? Do you improvise it? Do you push the players or constrain their options, or some mix? So that is the DM's endless struggle. What you've asked right there is everybody who is scared to try DMing. These are all of the questions that they usually ask. It's not as daunting a task as it looks like it might be. Once you know your players, especially, it's pretty easy to figure out what they might do, what they might, be interested in, what they might go talk about, who they would go look at, or whatever. All that stuff just kind of falls in place when you know your players. It's not illegal if you're a newer DM to just ask your players where they're going to go and what they might be interested in doing when they get there. We talked for an hour last week about how to have them help you with the weight of your world and how they can kind of lead the story in a way. So That's definitely the style that I prefer. I like just tracking the world and making the world feel as alive as possible. So that means when you go to a place and you leave for 2 months and you come back, it's different. And I'll keep spoilers out of that, but just to keep it as sort of vague but helpful as possible. If your world feels alive, it doesn't matter where the players want to go because you'll have some idea of what's happened while they've been gone. But the easy example is you go to a shop, you see a +1 sword, it's a little out of your price range, you go adventuring for a few weeks, you come back, you have the money, and that +1 sword is gone. That feels more real to me than you come back and that +1 sword is still there, and it's the same one, and it's not like they've made a new one, because that implies to me that nothing has happened because you weren't there. So I like to make it feel like the world is real and moving. Someday I'll have to do a video on how I've handled villains in the past. That might be a fun one to do. Maybe we can do another big mega episode or something. I'll see how much I have to say about that. Maybe I'll try to do that for next time. But I'm getting distracted. Just, there's a million and one ways to do it. Every DM's gonna have their own method. Mine is make the world feel real, know what your villains are doing, and get really, really good at improv. And don't be afraid to say no. I think that covers all of my bases there. So we're gonna do one extreme spoilers question. Just the question. The question is a spoiler. The answer, if you're not spoiled by the question, will not matter. This is a spoiler yet again for session 98. This is the most burning question that comes up a lot, so I figured I would just tackle it here. The reference I'm going to use here is Matthew Turner, but I don't even know how many of you have left these questions on the actual session itself. You have been warned. Here we go. How on earth did Arlecchino escape the box he was buried in when he never got all the key pieces? Moreover, how did he get any of them? So all of those moments are in the sessions. I'll let you go back and see if you can figure out when it happened. But there were no hacks involved for him to snag the pieces that he did. As for how did he get out, if you are caught up to the Tuts campaign so far, you should be able to extrapolate that for yourself. I think we've even talked about it in sessions. But long story short, he didn't cheat. Arlecchino found most of the pieces to the key that he needed and made one last desperate push for the last one. And that's why when they did what they did, he expired in the way that he did. But let's move on from all that. That's very grim and dark, and let's talk about the adorable, precious, dreadfully moody nuisance known as Jigglypuff and its ilk, which is also an Iggly Buff. So let's start there. It's an Iggly Buff. We've got a 3-tier evolution for you this week. Triple tier fairy cake. So let's talk about it. Iggly Buff, if you want to use the babies, has a very, very low stat line. I'm just warning you guys right now. I gotta preface again, for the Pokemon building things, these are meant to be a vanilla, like first level version of the Pokemon that you would run into. Obviously that doesn't mean a Wigglytuff's gonna be level 1, it just means it would be a baseline Wigglytuff. The new system that we've got for developing the Pokemon is definitely designed to be sort of modular, so you can just take out the pieces that you don't like, sub in the pieces that you do, make it go from there. But I've rambled long enough. Iggly Buff is a fairy type. It has 3 abilities. We have Cute Charm. Any creature within 5 feet of you that targets you with a melee attack must succeed a Wisdom saving throw against your status DC. That's just, think of it like your Wisdom saving throw if you're a cleric in normal D&D. It's calculated the exact same way. Be your Wisdom plus your proficiency plus 8, which, you know, it's an arbitrary number if you're not familiar with that system, but that's the one we use. So on a failure, The creature must choose a new target for its attack if possible, otherwise they skip that attack. Either way, a creature may only be affected by this once per day. So it's basically a one-time use sanctuary. Once per battle, I should say. So if they fail or they hit you, either way, they're only affected by it once, but it does affect every single creature one time per day. So it potentially buys you one free turn from everything, which is a better way I've found than doing actually having the infatuation mechanic where you have to roll because it's basically just confusion but you don't hurt yourself. And then how do you break out of that? It leads to some weird RP moments, potentially forever, which could be an interesting plot hook, but to keep it simple, because it's an ability, that is how I would do Iggly Buff's Q Charm. Then we move on, we have competitive. Whenever this Pokemon's speed is reduced or its damage is reduced or resisted, it gets a +1 to attack and damage rolls for the next minute. So that's to kind of mimic the you drop one stat by one stage and your attack goes up by 2 stages. And I think competitive might be special attack. Those of you in the VGC community, you'll have to let me know. And last but not least, we have Friend Guard. All allies within 10 feet of you take your proficiency bonus reduced damage from all sources, but you do not get this benefit. So that's just a paladin aura, but it doesn't affect you. I went the support route for Iggly Buff and so on and so forth. Now we get into the attacks. I'm gonna glaze over Pound because it's very, very basic. Y'all know how Pound works at this point. Very moderate to hit, very reasonable damage. We have Sweet Kiss. Be a DC 11 Charisma saving throw. You force a creature within 5 feet of you to make that save or become confused. If the creature is immune to the Charmed condition, they automatically succeed. So I would treat that as obviously like a Charmed Person type deal, without the caveat that if you're in combat with them, they get any bonuses to it, because you're always going to be in combat with something when you're using this in theory. But again, it does allow for some interesting out-of-combat sort of RP moments. So let's jump on down. We have Growl, very simple, very basic. It's just an AoE damage reduction. So everybody that's hostile to you within 5 feet, they gotta make a DC 11 Charisma save, or have their damage rolls reduced by 1 for a minute, but it can't reduce it to 0 or less, so they're always gonna do at least 1 damage. But that's Growl. And Life Dew, last but not least. As an action, you and all allies within 5 feet of you recover your proficiency bonus in hit points. So again, Iggly Buff, I definitely went with the sort of healer support route because it just kind of seems reasonable given the moveset for Iggly Buff. There's not a lot to work with, so we do what we can here. The AC is a reasonable 10, the HP is 8, proficiency bonus of 2, strength of 5, dexterity and constitution of 10, and intelligence of 11, wisdom of 12, and 14 charisma because it is a baby. Its size is tiny, it has a 20-foot running speed and a 15-foot hover. But let's say that we've worked with our Iggly Buff for a good long while, and now it's time to evolve. So let's see what changed and how. Eagle-eyed observers will note the abilities for Jigglypuff stay the same as Iggly Buff, so we're just going to kind of gloss over those real quick. Cute Charm, Competitive, and Friend Guard, they all stay the same. For the purposes of evolution here, on the off chance that you are a DM that is doing this and does not track Iggly Buff, Jigglypuff is written as a double-stage Pokemon here, so it would just go from Jigglypuff to Wigglytuff, depending on the sort of generation that you're inspired by. If you're like me and you're much more focused on like Gen 1, Gen 2, you might be more inclined to add or subtract things. If you're doing just Gen 1, you just ignore Iggly Buff and jump straight into Jigglypuff. Otherwise, I would just scale Jigglypuff up from there. But again, I've rambled. Here we go. Pound has become Covet. Same bonus to hit, same damage, but if you do not have an item and your target does and you hit with this move, you take their item. We have Disarming Voice instead of Sweet Kiss. We have a +4 to hit, 1d6 fairy damage, 10-foot range on there. Echoed Voice has taken over for Growl. Got a +4 to hit. 1d6 damage, does just sound-based normal damage. 15-foot range. Each time you or another creature uses Echoed Voice on consecutive turns, add an additional +1 to hit and +1 to damage. The ability stacks any number of times until you use a different attack or until you miss, because that could get kind of out of hand. But anybody that's using Echoed Voice, I had an idea in the design space that if you got a whole team of Echoed Voice, maybe you're a singer or something, you could run around with a team that has Echoed Voice, and anytime it's a multi-battle, you could just absolutely obliterate your opponents like a Banshee. And the ultimate classic signature Jigglypuff move, we have Sing. All creatures within 5 feet of you must succeed a Constitution saving throw contested by a performance check. Any creature that rolls below your performance check becomes drowsy, and a drowsy target will fall asleep. So let's talk stats here. The AC has gone up to 12, an HP of 10. Proficiency bonus has stayed at 2. Again, just in case, because you're just as likely to run into a Jigglypuff as an Iggly Buff. Strength of 8, Dexterity of 10, Constitution of 15, Intelligence of 13, Wisdom of 12, Charisma of 14. Our speed jumps up to 30, and our hover speed goes to 20, and our size is now small. But Jigglypuff has been hitting the proverbial gyms. Cute Charm and Competitive stay when we hit Wigglytuff. But now we have Frisk instead of Friend Guard. So Frisk, I allow a bonus action to determine if a Pokemon is holding an item, and if they are, what it is. That is obviously something that I would write a clause of, like, at the DM's discretion, because sometimes they're going to be holding something that you don't want the players to know just yet. Where I would reward that, it has been brought to my attention, there are some DMs who don't do that, and that's totally fine. So I've started putting those clauses in my design space, just in case. Not that I think we're ever going to do anything with these stat blocks, but here we go. Covet is now a +6 to hit, 1d6 damage, same deal, 5-foot range. If you're not holding something and they are, you can take it. Kind of combos really nicely with Frisk, so you can know what you're getting. Play Rough, +6 to hit, 1d10 fairy damage, 5-foot range. Nothing too fancy there. Echoed Voice stays here, but we do have now a +6 to hit, and our base damage is 1d8, so the potential ceiling there goes much further up. And we kept Sing because it just felt wrong to get rid of. Works exactly the same way. You gotta beat that performance check and a Constitution saving throw. Now our armor class jumps to 14, our hit points up to an arbitrary 82. That felt right to me, I can't really explain it. Proficiency bonus goes to 4, strength of 12, dex of 10, constitution of 18, intelligence of 16, wisdom of 13, charisma of 15. Speeds stay the same, 30 running, 20 hover, and our size goes to medium. Wigglytuff is a little bit larger than the counterparts. But alright gang, that's been the Professor's Lab for this week. A little bit shorter than last week, but at least we got to sneak in a Pokemon build here. So yeah, as always, feel free to drop your questions, comments, corrections, anything like that. Let me know how you would build Jigglypuff and the whole line of them. All these little puff balls. Let me know what you guys would do with those. How you think about evolution and such. And let me know if you guys have any questions on anything else, and we'll keep it going. And I think I've talked myself into at some point now doing a video where I talk about how I run my villains, because that might make for an interesting conversation in the comments. So I'm gonna leave you on that. If you guys have questions or way that you run villains, leave them in the comments, and we'll address them in that video. But until then, gang, I've rambled long enough. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.